Good afternoon, Governor, Madam Speaker, Pro Tem, Speaker of the House in California. We truly are grateful to be here. My name is Ann Johnson, and I'm a proud Texas Democrat standing with my Democratic House colleagues. Make no mistake about it, we are running from nothing. We see the danger that is coming, and we are running straight for it. Please know that last week, Texas Republicans, in their effort to try to appease the entitlement of Donald Trump, have tried to steal 5 congressional seats from the voters of Texas. This is not the first time we have seen folks try to appease Donald Trump. You all remember that Trump called Georgia and asked them and said, boys, I need 11,000 votes. To their credit, those Republicans said, no, we're not doing that. That crosses a line. When Trump called Governor Greg Abbott and Texas Republicans and said, boys, I need you to steal 5 seats, they said, does July work for you? Well, it does not work for us as Texas Democrats, because we recognize that this is not just about Texas. This is about ensuring that the voters get to determine the outcome of their next election. We are now facing threats. The threat that we're going to lose our jobs, the threat of financial ruin, the threat that we be hunted down as our colleagues sit on their hands and remain silent as we all get personal threats to our lives. When people show you that they are more concerned with keeping the job than doing the job, you know that they are not worthy of public service. We as Democrats are standing up to ensure that the voices of every voter is lifted up in this next election cycle and that the next election is not stolen from them. Please know that we do not take lightly where we are with today's climate and the threat that the FBI come to get us. We proudly stand with Californians in this moment that when faced with Texas's steel, they have met it head on with courage and with a sense of urgency to protect the entire nation. We are running from nothing. We are running to the front lines. We are running to the front lines to stand with other Democrats across the state of Texas, across the state of California, across this nation, to ensure that each and every individual has the opportunity to pick, to decide that government is for the people, by the people, and not the politicians selecting them. And so we are here because we do know that courage is contagious. And we are here to give hope to others to stand up and be courageous in this moment. I am so grateful to introduce Assemblymember Isaac Bryan as part of the California group that is here to stand with Texas Democrats.
Thank you all for being here. I want to thank Representative Johnson and all of the members of the Texas delegation for their bravery and their courage. They are the example of what it means to be the best of America, the best of Texas. And we have your back here in California. I want to thank Governor Gavin Newsom for stepping into this moment with so much courage and so much strength. It takes a certain type of fortitude to stand up and say very plainly that we have had enough. We've had enough. I want to thank Speaker Robert Rivas for guiding the State Assembly through this moment and many other challenges this year with so much dignity, so much compassion, and so much of the care that is missing out of D.C. And of course, the same is true for Senator Mike McGuire, our pro tem in the Senate. Here in California, we recognize our responsibility to the 1 in 8 Americans who call California home, but we also recognize our responsibility to the country. That is why we pay over $80 billion in federal taxes that we don't get back. It's why we export food to every corner of this nation. It's why we export culture and storytelling. It's why we host students from around the country at the #1 public university in the world, UCLA. And right now, California has a responsibility to our democracy. What is happening in Texas, what is being pushed out by the Trump administration beyond Texas, is something we thought we would never see, where people's lives, their representation, their participation is willingly stifled, violently stifled, in plans that did not include public opinion, that did not include public participation, and had a pure political goal. And that goal was to consolidate power for this authoritarian in the White House. California cannot sit back and just let that happen. We have a responsibility to step up, and we're going to step up. And that doesn't mean we are abandoning our values. While I chaired the Elections Committee, we proposed independent redistricting commissions for every level of California government, and it was opposed by every single Republican. We updated the Fair Max Act. It was opposed by every single Republican. We are not doing away with the independent commission that we established every single decade, but we are meeting this moment, because this is not a turn the other cheek moment while they continue to send blow after blow to the foundations of democracy. Where I'm from in Los Angeles, when they go low, we squabble up. I had the great pleasure of seeing John Lewis several times before he passed away. And he always said the same thing in every single room I was in with him. He said, if you see something that is not right, that is not fair, that is not just, you have a moral responsibility to do something about it. And that is what has brought us here today. And I have the great privilege of introducing the chair of the Senate Elections Committee, my colleague and my friend, Sabrina Savas.
I am honored to chair the Senate Committee on Elections and Constitutional Amendments in this pivotal moment in our history. I applaud the Texas representatives for the courage they are displaying in resisting this Trump Republican power grab. California did not start this fight. We are proud of our Citizens Redistricting Commission. It is a gold standard in our country. But this is an emergency that requires an emergency response. California stands ready to respond. We will not sit idle on the sidelines while our communities are torn apart. This is a path to end the chaos. I would like to call up our speaker, Speaker Rivas.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. And since the moment that Donald Trump was sworn in as president, he has worked to change our country from a proud democracy to an authoritarian state. The stakes are high. That's why we are here this afternoon. They are that high. He's bullying universities to control what they teach. He's targeting news programs and late-night shows, attempting to control what we watch. And here in California, masked ICE agents, without badges, without identification, they're shoving people into unmarked cars, disappearing them into detention centers with no accountability, and too often no way for families to even find their loved ones. And let's be clear, they're not going to stop with the most vulnerable people or undocumented residents. History tells us that that is not how authoritarianism works. We are only 7 months into this presidency, 7 months. And the more power they get, the more they will take. And what will they do with this power? More immigration raids? More arrests? More crackdowns? More attacks on our freedoms? Well, certainly what we can expect are more negative consequences for every single American. Because of Trump's policies, millions of Californians will lose their health care. And so we have to stand up now. We have a responsibility here in California to stand up and defend our democracy. And I'm proud to stand here with the brave Democrats from Texas who are doing just that. Texas Republicans acting on direct orders from Donald Trump, are redrawing congressional lines so that there is no way to dislodge them from power of Congress, no way to hold them accountable, no way to prevent them from doing whatever they want. Well, as Californians, we're here to say absolutely not. If they're trying to destroy our democracy, you're going to have to come through California. You have to come through California, where we are nearly 40 million strong in this state. We have the fourth largest economy in the world. And we have a proud tradition here in our state of standing up for the people's rights, of standing up for what is always in the best interest of our state and of this country. We will not allow Trump's Republican Party to rig this system and take permanent control of the U.S. House of Representatives. We are prepared, and we will fight fire with fire. And we will do whatever it takes to defend our democracy. California will do whatever it takes to protect the voices, to protect the votes, and to protect the rights of every single American. And now I'd like to introduce and welcome my partner in the State Senate, Pro Tem Mike McGuire.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here. I want to take a moment to say thank you so much to Speaker Rivas. I'd like to acknowledge California's governor, thank him for his leadership, being so bold on this issue. We are incredibly grateful. The defender of democracy is here today, and that's Nancy Pelosi. We are incredibly grateful for your incredible work and legacy on behalf of all Americans. Zoe Lofgren, who chairs California Democrats on behalf of the California Democratic Caucus in Congress, thank you so much to our caucus chair, Monique Limon, to our chair of elections, Ms. Cervantes, to the assembly members, and to the patriots. The patriots who are here on the front lines of democracy, risking their health and safety. These leaders from the great state of Texas, we owe them a great debt of gratitude. When I was 19 years old, I took California's oath of office for the first time. And never in my life has the duty to defend the Constitution of the state of California and the Constitution of the United States of America been more critical than it is here and now. The future of this great nation, the future of our democracy, is hanging by a thread. And today we are at a flashpoint set by President Donald Trump and Texas Republicans who see the writing on the wall. Because if their draconian legislative actions were to take place, they've seen the same polls we have, they're not going to win the midterms in swing seats. So what do they have to do? They have to cheat to win. Here's what we know. We know what the American people want right here and right now. They want lower prices for families, not expensive tariff taxes. That's costing American consumers hundreds of billions of dollars and devastating California's economy. People want cancer research that save lives, not golden ballrooms that stroke egos. People want a government that trusts trained scientists in real numbers, not secret police who literally are snatching innocent people off the streets of this state. Take a moment to think about this for a second. They're taking innocent people off the streets of our communities and shove them into moving vans. People want their health care. They don't want tax cuts for billionaires. So in order to win, Donald Trump has to cheat. And they've come up with this cynical ploy in Texas to be able to redraw congressional maps, to silence working voters, to silence Latino and black voters, and to prop up an authoritarian presidency that is rotten to its core. All of us here, we've taken that same oath of office, and I don't mean to get emotional about it, but it's incredibly personal to each and every one of us. And that's why if Texas moves forward with this action, California has to be prepared to respond. It is our sacred responsibility to California to to our country, and we know that there is no bottom to Trump's dystopian plan. I'm firm in my belief that if the legislature puts a redistricting initiative on the ballot, I believe the people of the Golden State will do the right thing. I trust the voters of California more than I would ever trust Trump and his lackeys in Texas. You know, I've heard it mentioned before. 2 wrongs don't make a right. The response that we have to be prepared for is not a wrong. It's not a wrong to stand up for the Constitution of this state and for the Constitution of the United States of America in the face of those who would destroy it for their own personal power and profit. It's not wrong to stand up to the billions in cuts that the president is proposing to health care here in California, to education, to our university system. Letting people vote is the right way to go about it. So is national redistricting. It leads to independent maps all across the country, and it's wonderful to see the Republican congressional members in the state starting to see the light that Democrats have had for decades. I want to end it right here with this. We've had the honor to be able to talk with several of our colleagues from Texas who described that they're being tracked by the FBI. Leaders in the state of Texas are being tracked by the FBI. They're facing bomb threats, death threats, and that is after what we saw in Minnesota just 2 months ago. Republicans, Donald Trump, Greg Abbott, Texas Republican leaders, they have the power to stop the threats, to stop all of this. And that's the questions that the media should be asking. Why aren't they stopping this? Republicans in California also have the responsibility to see that their Republican leaders do just that. This isn't a fight. This is not a fight that California picked. But it's also not a fight that we are going to run from. When times are tough, you run towards the wildfire. And that's what we're going to be prepared to do. This country is hanging by a thread, as we know. We have the duty to protect it with an ironclad commitment that we all swore before God. It is now my honor to introduce Lofgren, who has been instrumental in this process. She is the elected chair of the California Democratic Congressional Delegation. Can we please give her a warm welcome?
Well, thank you very much, Mike. You know, California Democratic Delegation has been long in favor of independent citizen commission. In fact, the commission drew our lines. We are not allowed to give them any input, and that was fine with us. I am the author of a bill in the House to require independent commissions in every state. And when Democrats were in the majority, and we had Ms. Pelosi as our speaker, we passed a bill that included independent commissions in every state. We did not get a single Republican vote for that, and the Republicans blocked it in the U.S. Senate. So we're not here trying to change or rig the system. We're here because Donald Trump and his Republican cohorts are trying to rig the system. They know that what they've done to the American people is deeply unpopular. They know that because of what they've done, stripping health care for more than 17 million Americans, to give tax cuts to billionaires, hurting California by increasing pollution, by stripping education funds, by stripping nutrition programs from the needy. That is very unpopular, and we cannot allow these elections to be rigged without a response. Now, the Democrats in California are happy with all our districts just as they are, but when we saw that Texas was going to create the most segregated map in Texas since the 60s to eliminate all of the minority districts that they could so that they could create 5 Republican districts, we said, could we create a map that eliminated 5 Republican districts, but that was true to the Voting Rights Act? And we found that we could. And so as we went through the details of the possibilities, I'm happy to report that every single member of the California delegation is willing to support a plan to do that. We cannot stand here. We cannot stand here and just shrug as Trump and the Republicans try and rig the rules so they can avoid responsibility for the damage that they have done to this country. We need a break on them, and we can get it in the midterm elections. I'll tell you, when we were in the majority, we didn't strip health care from Americans. We provided health care with the Affordable Care Act. And the mastermind of that is someone I'd like to introduce next, the most effective speaker in the history of the United States, Nancy Pelosi.
Thank you very much, Zoe. I think it's very clear from listening to our presenters so far that the Republicans are acting because they have bankruptcy of ideas. They have no winning ideas to present to the American people, and they cannot defend their actions legitimately. So they're trying to do it and rig it illegitimately. I want to thank our governor for his leadership, his persistence in protecting and defending our Constitution and our democracy. Thank you, Governor Newsom. It's an honor to be here with the Speaker of the Assembly and the President Pro Tem of the Senate of our legislature and hear their clear message about what this means to California, but more importantly, to our country. And I join them in welcoming the courageous members of the Texas delegation who are here. We thank you not only for your courage, but for your patriotism. For your patriotism. I've said to you before, at the beginning of our country, Thomas Paine said, the times have found us. Times found them to form a new country, to write a constitution, and the rest, thank God, they made it amendable. And now the times found Lincoln, then found Lincoln to save that country, the unity of that country. And now the times have found all of us, and especially our Texas delegation, to save our Constitution. I'm from Maryland originally, and I'm very proud that the national anthem was written there. And my favorite line in the anthem is, proof through the night that our flag was still there. We have a responsibility to prove through the night of this Trump administration, the darkness of it all, that our flag is still there with liberty and justice for all. And that is what I'm so proud of, the leadership of all of our California delegation in Congress, but also our state legislature as well. Zoe Laughlin has led the way as the leader of our House Democrats from California in the unity that she mentioned about our delegation. And this is something that we're unified on to honor our oath of office to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States. The president has paved over the Rose Garden. He's paved over freedom of speech. He's paved over freedom of education. The list goes on and on. Independent judiciary, rule of law, pave it over. But we will not let, he's gone too far. We will not let him pave over free and fair elections in our country, starting with what he's trying to do in Texas, countering that. So this isn't two wrongs, or as was mentioned. It's not a wrong in what we're doing. This is self-defense for our democracy. They have hit out at our democracy, and we are here to defend it. I thank again our Texans for their leadership, for their courage, most of all for their patriotism. And now I'm very pleased to yield to our distinguished leader in all of this effort, someone who was right out there right from the start, who brings us together, making us so very proud, our Governor, Gavin Newsom.
Thank you. Well, let me thank everybody for taking the time to be here, and let me welcome all of you to Governor Ronald Reagan's home. Reminded of Governor Reagan's last speech in the Oval Office, where he talked about the life force of new Americans. He talked about Lady Liberty's torch. And here we are, fast forward decades later, appropriately with a portrait of Ronald Reagan looking down on the President of the United States of America, Donald Trump, who's trying to light a torch on democracy. He's trying to roll back the last half century. He wants to put America in reverse on LGBT rights, on voting rights, civil rights, on the rights of women and girls. We're here in that light at this profound and consequential moment. And we're here with 6 courageous leaders that they've been described from the Texas delegation. It is my privilege to have had now 2 delegations visit from Texas. And it's my honor to welcome all of you and to thank you for your courage. Thank you for faith and devotion to the cause that unites all of us across this country, regardless of party. And that are the enduring principles of our founding fathers. You know, we talked about the 249th anniversary of those principles. Next year we'll celebrate the 250th anniversary of those enduring principles, the best of the Roman Republic and Greek democracy, a system of co-equal branches of government. This notion of a system of checks and balances, popular sovereignty, all of that on the line, all of that at risk. And so I'm very sober and mindful of this moment. And as a consequence, we have taken our relationship to this moment very, very seriously. Had it not been for the courage of the Democratic representatives from Texas to stand tall and to stand up, to walk out, as is their right, as old a principle as American pie, the ability for a minority to walk out when it comes to the abuses of a majority. And they did just that to elevate not just their voices as representatives, but to elevate our voices, to call out the consequential nature of what's happening. What's happening in the United States of America is not normal. We cannot allow this to be considered normal. Please don't say it's surprising. When you say something is no longer surprising, you normalize it. This is shocking, what's happened. You heard Representative Johnson say it very powerfully and very clearly. And what more evidence did you need? You saw this take shape after Donald Trump tried to wreck the democracy after January 6th, where he dialed for 12,000 votes in Georgia. By your courageous leadership, regardless of party, that stood up against that tyranny. Now he's dialing up for seats. He called Greg Abbott, who doesn't have the courage, doesn't have the backbone, doesn't have the consciousness of the consequences of his action. And he has rolled over and he said, yes, sir, and they're trying to dial now for new seats for precisely the reason that Speaker Pelosi and others have represented. They will lose in the midterms. He knows it. Why else would he make that phone call? His agenda's failing. This presidency is failing. He knows the headwinds in a midterm. He's dialing for seats. Not only did he dial for 5 seats in Texas, he just sent his vice president, the vice president of the United States, not to console those 137 families whose lives were torn asunder because they lost loved ones to the floods. By the way, 3 members of my community in Marin County, Mark and Sarah and Johnny Walker, 14 years old, died in the flood. Mark, 50 years old. Sarah, same age. Family, friends. We were at their memorial yesterday. Vice President come to console the family members of the lives lost. He went to Indiana to continue to try to rig the election. You have a special election in Texas. You'd think that's all they'd be focused on. 37 kids dying in those floods. But they're focused on this, a power grab. And it's not limited to Texas and Indiana. You've seen what's happening in Florida. You've seen what's happening in Ohio and other states. So we have got to step up. Our state of mind is about accountability, responsibility. Again, taking this moment seriously. What is our relationship to this moment? And we recognize we have agency. We're not bystanders. That we can shape the future. Decisions, not conditions. And so we choose to be held to a higher level of accountability. It wasn't our decision to be here, it's reaction to. We are trying to defend democracy as opposed to see it destroyed district by district. And we will stand firm and we will stand tall. And perhaps the expression today is the expression of unity. That's what we're trying to communicate. You have congressional representatives here, the leader of our congressional delegation. They are unanimous in their support of moving in this direction. You have the Speaker and the Pro Tem, and they strong support of their caucuses, and leaders of critical committees and caucus are here to express support. We are moving forward. Make no mistake. California is moving forward as a state that's larger than 21 state populations combined. We are not a small, isolated state. State larger than 21 populations combined. We tried to play by a higher set of standards and rules with our independent redistricting, and we believe in that. And we are not talking about eliminating that commission. We are talking about emergency measures to respond to what's happening in Texas, and we will nullify what happens in Texas. We will pick up 5 seats with the consent of the people, and that's the difference between the approach we're taking and the approach they're taking. We're doing it on a temporary basis. We're doing it in a fully transparent way, and we're doing it by asking the people of the state of California for their consent and support. Mark that stark contrast to what's happening in Texas and other states. We are resolved, and we are aligned in this strategy. And I'm deeply, in closing, grateful for the leadership that's assembled here today. In unprecedented time, required an unprecedented approach, an unprecedented leadership to build the kind of consensus that we believe we have. We have till August 22nd. With the leadership behind me, they will get this on the ballot. We're calling for a special election. That'll be the first week of November. It will coincide with many other municipal elections. We will raise an unprecedented amount of attention, and we will garner an unprecedented amount of support because people understand what's at stake. Final words. Because I want to reinforce what the Speaker and the Pro Tem say. You have people disappearing in the state of California, quite literally disappearing. Warrantless search, people literally being taken from the streets. I don't think this, I know it. 16-year-old kid whose mom and dad working 20 years at the same packing facility, 16-year-old didn't even know how to get back into his own home because mom and dad disappeared going to work. Young child had no brothers and sisters. That's Trump's America. That's happening as we speak. The Guard has been federalized. And by the way, Donald Trump is continuing to federalize the National Guard through the election. Pause and consider what that may mean. There is nothing normal about this. Nothing normal about this. Conditioning aid, let me make this clear in front of the Texas delegation. I am proud, and thank you to Isaac Bryan, $83.1 billion more we provided the federal government in federal taxes than we received. Texas, for whatever reason, for success, and how Texas does punch above its weight, received $71.1 billion more from the federal government they received. But I'll tell you what, as a taxpayer, as governor of California, I am proud to stand tall to help them recover from these floods. No conditions, no politics. We're all in this together. I was proud to send search and rescue teams to support the recovery of those floods. That's my responsibility. That's what it's like to be a member of a community. We're all in this together. The idea that we're even conditioning aid and allowing that conversation to persist, that's what's at stake with this conversation. It's not about lines, it's about drawing a line, and it's all about elevating a deeper consciousness of the line that Donald Trump continues to cross. It's not about him playing by a different set of rules. There are no rules for Donald Trump. This is a serious moment in American history. And so we are here to meet this moment head on. And we look forward to a successful campaign, and we look forward to continuing to do what we can to have the backs of these courageous leaders who are back here in the state of California, sharing their voice as we share their action and passion at peril that this democracy may not live. With that, we're here to answer any questions.
Given the timeline, we do not want UCLA to settle with the Trump administration. Are you taking any actions to fight this?
Yeah, we'll sue. I mean, this is a separate topic, but it's not necessarily disconnected from this topic. Donald Trump today is trying to silence academic freedom. He's attacking one of the most important public institutions in the United States of America, one of the finest institutions of higher learning in the world, one of the great research institutions in this country, one of the reasons California is the 10th pole of the U.S. economy, one of the reasons we have more scientists, engineers, more Nobel laureates than any other state in this nation. He has threatened us through extortion with $1 billion fine unless we do his bidding. So as long as I'm governor, I will stand tall and push back against that. And I believe every member of California legislature feels the same way. We will not be complicit in this kind of attack on academic freedom, on this extraordinary public institution. We are not like some of those other institutions that have followed a different path.
Governor, given the timeline that you've mentioned on the special election, it sounds like the California legislature will have 5 days to basically set the election. When will the maps be released to give the public ample time to at least review them?
Well, that's a question for all of our folks here, but bottom line, it's going to be in their ballot box. It's going to be on their ballot. So it's about as transparent as it gets. I have not been privy to the map. I'm mapping out a strategy to make this successful. I have not looked at any maps. I told you that yesterday, told you that last week, and that continues to be the case today. As it relates to that map and that process that's going through. By the way, it's very transparent because these are familiar maps. The independent redistricting has taken over 10,000 hours of testimony and public comment over the years, and they've bandied about many of these maps that have been seen before. So it's a very familiar process. It's not a very complicated process. It may appear to be, but it's not. But the process we want to make very transparent, and that's the idea of putting the maps on the ballot. And that was something for me was a red line. And it's something that I think is foundational in terms of this effort.
So does it not matter what people think then in the 5 days that the legislature has the time? I mean, this is for really legislative leaders. Is 5 days an adequate enough time for the public to review what you will present to them on the ballot?
So I can tell you this, Ashley, that maps we anticipate will be available next week. Our work began with the work that was already done, as the governor just mentioned, by our Independent Redistricting Commission. Once these maps are released, voters will have the opportunity to digest these maps, review them for weeks and months leading to this election. If there is another state with a more transparent process where voters will get the ultimate say in these new maps, please let me know what it is, or if there's a state doing it, because we are going above and beyond to ensure that, one, we are protecting the Voting Rights Act, and that we are sending the voices of our most vulnerable to Washington, D.C. But when it comes to the maps, we anticipate these maps to be available next week.
Governor, I have a question. How can you guarantee to Californians this will be a one-time exception of the Independent Redistricting Commission? If you're in a gerrymandering arms race, what makes you confident this is the only time you'll ask them?
Well, I'd say we want to do it for the 26, 28, 30 ballots just for congressional representatives alone. We want to provide that opportunity to the voters. They'll make that decision. And they'll decide that direction. We want to maintain the framework of the Independent Redistricting Commission, which I've long supported. We believe, as the Lofgren believes, as the author of the legislation that only Democrats signed. I'll repeat that because it needs to be repeated. The Democratic Party is on record supporting national independent redistricting. The Democratic Party is on record. The Republican Party is nowhere to be found on that. But we're not going to unilaterally disarm in the state of California. We tried to lead by example with the Independent Redistricting Commission. And we are looking at temporary measures. And that is my intent, and that is the direction that ultimately will be made by the public.
I have a question for the Texas reps. What's your reaction to your Attorney General suing you guys today for leaving the state?
I mean, it just follows the long line of threats, right? I mean, we can tell they're desperate. I mean, they are throwing everything at us that they can. The loss of leadership, the financial ruin, the threats that they are putting out into their group. And then, of course, my colleague here, they have filed litigation to try to vacate seats. They are trying to overturn the will of the electorate before a time has said, because they are afraid of the voters. Not only do they want to take out 5 congressional seats and steal them, they now want to take out the representatives that are actually standing up against them, attempting to rig the next election cycle. Duly elected representatives out of Texas that have elected us to be here today to break quorum per our Constitution because we know that the majority has gone off the rails.
I'm State Representative Gina Hinojosa, and I'm one of the legislators in Texas who is facing a threat by our Attorney General to be removed. You should know, just 2 days ago, I checked in with my office. We had had 700 calls on this bill proposing a new map. It hasn't even been out a week for the public to see. 4 were opposed. The rest were all in support of my breaking quorum. I'm doing exactly what my constituents want, and it is shameful for our governor or for our attorney general to try to remove a duly elected representative of the people from office, but it is in keeping with what is happening in this grander scheme of these Trump maps to try to rig the 2026 midterms.
The response to Governor Abbott saying he'll continue to call special sessions until you return.
So that's his decision. That's the benefit of who you elect for governor. We are breaking and doing everything we can to break this quorum. We have 137 at least. We are missing 2 more individuals out of Central Texas. We have been there for 2 weeks waiting to address that issue. They only put 1 bill up for us to debate in the House, and it was redistricting. We have an arrest warrant for us to go back to Texas for 1 bill only. They don't want us to come back for flooding. They are using those families as a distraction. The governor can write a check right now to try to start the process. And so it's his decision what's valuable to him. Does he want to have us come back and address flooding, to address the issue of school testing, to address human trafficking, to address the infrastructure in our courts? We will gladly show up. So you're going to find out, the people of Texas, who he plays for. Is he going to call us back for you, or is he going to call us back to do Trump's bidding?
Are you prepared to stay out of the state through even the filing deadline in December, if that's what it takes to stop a redraw for the 2026 map?
So we take this fight one day at a time. We fight to win today, and tomorrow we assess and take it on then. I'm reminded of a quote by one of our wonderful governors of the past, Ann Richards, and she said, "The here and now is all we have, and if we play it right, it's all we need." And that is what is happening here today. We're about to play it right. Thank you.
Question for the governor. If California redraws districts for Democrats to try to pick up 5 seats, that would only cancel out what Texas is doing, but Republican-led states, including Florida, Ohio, Missouri, and Indiana, will or are considering redrawing with their own lines, and Democrats don't control enough states or have enough districts to pick up to counter that. So, given that math, why go through with trying to bypass the independent redistricting?
Well, these guys are ruthless on the other side, so I concur. That said, we can control what we can control. It's not what happens, it's what we do in response to what happens. Here's what we can do in response. There's other states that can act, not dissimilarly to California, but none can act, I guess, with the scale and scope that we can. So that would be my response. It's always the right thing to do the right thing. It's always the right time to do the right thing. And our response is what we can control, and we can encourage others through the power of emulation to consider the approach that we've taken based upon their unique circumstances. Most states don't have independent redistricting. Many states have supermajorities in their legislature. There are a number of other states, as you know, that are considering democratically led states, and not just Republican-led states, that are considering similar actions, but we're not going to unilaterally disarm. We're not going to allow them to roll us over, and at least we will have the power of expressing ourselves very powerfully that everything they did in Texas, all the fire and fury, signified nothing. That we neutralized it. We nullified that. We don't move unless they move. This is triggered. They drew first blood. We're responding to this action. And this is how we choose to respond. I hope other governors and other leaders across the country do the same.
Last question. In the hypothetical, if it is triggered and voters do not approve it, is there a backup plan? Is there a plan B if Texas moves?
I think the voters will approve it. I think the voters understand what's at stake. Look, I'm not naive. We live in the most un-Trump state in America. And I think people understand, boy, do they understand, intimately understand what's at stake with Donald Trump. What more evidence you need today, a couple days ago, with a Penske truck where people just jumped out, racially profiling people. Look at what just happened, UCLA. What more evidence do we need? And so I think I have all the confidence in the world, the wisdom of the voters of this great state. And I'm not just talking about Democrats. I'm not just talking about independents. We believe in independent redistricting. That will be on the ballot. We believe it should be nationalized. That will be on the ballot. We have the opportunity to send a message enough, and I believe Republicans, not just Democrats and independents, will meet that call, and we will overwhelmingly support this change.
Governor,
Thank you.
6
We're
months
out of
ago,
time.
so 6 months ago.
Thank you. Press, please hold.